Hello, it is Sunday, July 2nd, 2023 at 12:24 p.m. Eastern Time, USA. I'm Mitch Miller. This is my video journal. I'm going to try to be as brief as possible. I'm going to talk about a little bit more about slavery and its potentials in the United States. But first, a little intel. Got the fuel filter replaced on the Explorer because it said it was running lean on the code. That didn't fix it, but I did get a tip from my mechanic in Polk that I can unplug the front anti-lock brake sensors up by the fog lights. I wrapped them in electrical tape and it seems to be working, so I'm not having the issue with the brakes. But the engine's running like crap. It could be related to a case of vandalism at the Utica Post Office. They shut a roll-down door over the window for where the postal worker works, but they leave the other postage box area open for people to come in at any time and get into their mailboxes. And somebody went in there and ripped down all the signs and took a crap in the corner of that area. So I guess the FBI came, investigated, they installed a camera. So now there's a camera at the Utica Post Office. And my thought process is maybe that same vandal urinated in my gas tank of the Explorer because it doesn't have a lock-in gas cap. I say that because my mechanic said I might have got water in the gas to put dry gas in it, and that's what I'm doing. It's running like crap. It could be the plugs and wires, could be a lot of things, but that's just my theory. So couple little pieces of intel there. I want to talk about potential jobs I have. Because, I talked about slavery, about how people can buy a candy bar anytime they want or eat powdered macaroni and cheese and are living pretty much in the same type of scenario as slaves around the world. And, it kind of in this capitalist model, we'll buy all the equipment, like at a McDonald's, a fast food restaurant, we'll buy all the equipment and you operate it and you get paid $7 an hour minimum wage. On my end, what I've been doing for the past 10 years, I buy all the equipment and I'm willing to climb a ladder and I get paid $15 an hour. I could probably, if I got divorced or whatever, could probably barely live on $15 an hour. Now that I've paid off my student loans, it's doable, but now I don't like taking drug money, but the Coolers always employ me on their houses. And I think they want their entire lake house painted, so when they're in Florida I might paint the entire lake house interior. I'm going to ask $25 an hour, so I'll get bumped up from slave wages for a month, but then it'll be back to $15 an hour again, right? So that's the nature of being self-employed. You don't know if you can count on $25 an hour year-round. They also mentioned something about painting their Florida house, so that could be in the works too. That is if Operation Oligarch doesn't come through or other operations and projects that I've put forward, which I would much rather do than paint manual labor houses. So, sorry about that. My mother is calling. Anyhow. So those are in the works, but on to slavery, right? So, and that's the thing, some of these Hollywood directors play into this, right? Or the mainstream media, they show the most brutal cases of punishment of slaves, of black slaves in the United States, show the most brutal conditions, the most brutal punishments, right? And it acts as a way for what happened in 1868 when we took away the right to trial by jury, and there were actually white indentured servants and white slaves, in essence. It takes away the ability, the idea that white or Latino or any other ethnicity other than black can refer to slavery, right? Hey, my conditions are almost slave-like. No, they're not. Watch this movie where the person gets brutalized. That was slave conditions. You're fine. You can buy a candy bar anytime you want. You can save up and go to the amusement park, so on and so forth. So it acts as a way, and then, you would hopefully if I ever do produce a podcast dealing with these issues, we can open the door so that blacks with ancestors that are slaves are welcoming of putting a look at our current conditions under the microscope, and don't just jump on people for making that comparison, right? But there is a very real situation, right? I think I mentioned over the phone with my friend, you have Elon Musk. He's got a satellite system above our heads, which I disagree with. He's got autonomous car vehicles automated out on the roads, and now he's invested in a brain implant company. Now there's a lot of good potential for Alzheimer's and things like that with these brain implants, don't get me wrong, but why it's not a public company or a non-profit company or some other individual looking into this, or a group of doctors, why it's a billionaire that has spacecraft and network of satellite systems, I don't think it should be allowed, because here's the thing, like we said with the eugenics laws, mentally ill were forced sterilized. They've been experimenting on the mentally ill for a long time. Big pharma, hospital system, so on and so forth. It's only a matter of time before you have these people, these mass shooters that are mentally ill, schizophrenic, and people say, look, if you're mentally ill and you don't respond to the medication, we're going to put a brain implant in your brain that stabilizes your mental abilities, right? Your mental welfare, right? So they experiment on the mentally ill with this. They get into the prison system with it. They test and they experiment for the next 10 years or whatever. And then, so I'm labeled mentally ill. And again, I don't want to go public with this theory, because then less people are going to get diagnosed mentally ill, right? They're going to be afraid to. So I'm not going to put this out here. It's on the Video Journal, and it gets distributed how it gets distributed. Get diagnosed mentally ill. You don't respond to the medication, or the doctors say you're not responding to the medication adequately. You get a brain implant. Then one day you wake up and whoop, you're remote controlled, right? You don't have control over anything. You're one of these humanoid slaves that I've talked about, which are much cheaper than building automated slaves, humanoid robots, and maintaining them, because it's free to breed humans, and you can, maybe not in the United States, but take these second generation mentally ill people's children away from them. You can do all kinds of things once you label people a minority and take away their rights, and that's what mental illness does. It takes away a lot of rights for individuals, up into the point where you actually have to sign your power of attorney over, which they tried to do to me when I was in Allegheny County Jail, get me to sign it over to Hillary. I did not sign that document, but so that's where we're at with these brain implants, right? They said it's going to be used for memory, for Alzheimer's, for things like that, but they could force it on the mentally ill. And then we have a current war where soldiers were recruited from prisons. So this is getting to be acceptable, that you can have an entire military force made up of criminals. And there's good and bad to that. Again, I say, because there's not right to trial by jury, a lot of these criminals shouldn't be criminals. They're drug offenses, so on and so forth. They should get a chance for their freedom. They shouldn't have to die in a war that they don't necessarily agree with to get that freedom. They should, government should grant right to trial by jury across the board, worldwide. It should be a fundamental right. But you have the Wagner Group with their military made up of prisoners, so who's to say, and I'm looking at the United States military, and this is why you grant me my freedom of speech stipend, right? I nix the part about being diagnosed mentally ill, or I do bring this out into full fruition, and if people don't want to get diagnosed, they don't get diagnosed. I'm just taking caution now. But You have a military force that's all prisoners. So who's to say to cut the budget, right? You can't find room in your budget, the United States military, for any of my projects. So who's to say they don't go to cut the budget in 10, 15, 20 years from now and say, we're going to go from a professional military to a prison military, or to a prison military hybrid, because we've developed these brain implants that we can go to prisoners and say, you will get your freedom after 10 years, but we're going to put an implant in your brain that partially automates your motor functions so that we can remotely operate situations with the military. And then after 10 years, when you get your freedom, we'll take the implant out. You'll be restored to full autonomy again, right? Who's to say they're not going to develop these brain implants? You have satellite systems up in the air. The military relies on these. The Ukrainian military relies on these. Again, you have billionaires like that, like Elon Musk, who, to my knowledge, has killed 17 people with his automated features, but he can hide behind a corporation. That's why you allow these corporations to exist, so that all these executives, these rich people, can hide behind the liability issues and hide behind their company in the name of progress, right? They're making progress, so some people have to die. That's the thought process. It doesn't have to be that way. We have very intelligent technology now that can tell us, or that we can develop in a way that doesn't kill people. But that's all technology. Most driving factors of technology are military to kill people, basically. It doesn't have to be that way. I've put out many proposals to stop that from happening, or to reverse that, or at least alter its course. So that's what I want to get out there. You have a situation where you could have a subclass of humans that have brain implants that are basically actual slaves. Again, back to the beginning of the United States with black slaves. You could have a military potential, and it comes from the top leadership, and it's just a signature, and now we have a full prisoner military, or a professional prison military hybrid to cut costs. You don't have to pay them as much, and we can 100% control their brain well-being while they're in our military, right? So just want to put that out there. It's a risk. It's something that came to mind, and we should act swiftly and boldly to prevent that from happening. Whether it's sanctions against Elon Musk, whether it's just putting forward my freedom of speech stipend so that I can develop this theory on my podcast. I'll wait for that, and I'll wait for an okay from someone verbally. Yes, you need to put this out there into the public sphere, and get this theory out there so that we can prevent it worldwide, because it might not happen in the United States, but it could happen in a place like Russia or whatever. So these are the risks we take, developing brain implants and delving deeper into the human mind. I think supercomputers and AI understand the human mind better than anyone ever will. They can shrink down to the quark size and analyze what's going on with memory and things like that in little pockets of the brain. But I've put that theory out there in the past. Thanks for watching, and join me next week when I talk about something else.